Glad to have you this morning. I got something funny to tell you.
Ooh, tell me.
May the fourth be with you. But better yet, may the Schwartz be with you.
I'm here.
Okay, I couldn't help it. All right, but I'm bummed. You know you were going to get it. We planned this out, y'all, all year long just to get the fourth. But hold on one second. I'm going to turn this. Yep, we're live on LinkedIn now. So I'm going to monitor our chat over here as we're going. I just am amazed at the last conversation we had, which has kind of brought us to this today, Madeline, is what your expertise is and the interesting, unique perspective you have in communication, but from an approach of quiet leadership. And I find that fascinating. You're going to talk to us about introverts and extroverts, but from a perspective of introvert. And, I think you need to tell us, how did you get started even going down that path?
Yeah, well, I spent the early part of my career designing and building window displays for retailers like Coach and Armani Exchange and Diesel and Nike and Adidas. And I really learned from that experience how to get a message across in seconds. But I also saw the struggle that so many creative people have who are really great at creative problem solving and aren't great at being able to talk about and sell their ideas to other people. And that's exactly what I solve in my business.
Wow. And did you have any kind of struggles like that personally?
So I did. I was always really good at connecting with people one-on-one or one-on-two, but if I had to present to a group of more than 3 people, I was terrified of having to speak in public. I also had a boss who told me I was too quiet and that it was weird for clients, and that had the opposite effect of what I imagine he intended. It didn't make me want to participate more or contribute because it made me more self-conscious. And it's a story that I hear reiterated in so many of my clients and fellow introverts, and it's something that I really want to change in the workplace so that spaces are more inclusive of the introverts and quiet leaders. Because getting over my own fear of public speaking was the single most liberating experience of my adult life.
Wow, that's a huge impact.
Yeah, it completely changed the trajectory of my career and my ability to lead, to make change. It changed what I decided I wanted to do with my career and the impact that I want to make. And now I get to help other people do that and really step into their own leadership.
That's amazing. That's amazing, because there's got to be a bunch of introverts, hopefully, on LinkedIn behind the lens here listening, and extroverts that might need some quietness, that can understand that it's not just for one thing. It's life changing for clear communication. So when you approach that, Madeline, what is it that you think to start with from an introvert is the most important thing they should know about quiet leaders? What should people know about quiet leaders, and how to be one? How about that?
Yeah. Well, really, first I think we need to clear up a misperception about being quiet, and that quiet is weak, because quiet is really powerful. And I just want to reframe that today, because listening is an act of courage. Silence is strategic. And quiet is powerful. Like, you don't win arguments or negotiations by being loud. You might shut people down, but you actually don't persuade anyone that way. You need to be a really good listener in order to be an effective negotiator, in order to be an effective leader. And, when we think of the traditional model of leadership, we might think of charisma and influence and persuasion, and we don't always think about listening. And that really is an important part of it. And I think of listening as a leadership skill, and that is something that introverts are naturally great at.
Wow. Wow. I would probably tend to agree with that about 200% as well. Um, you said something powerful, and Anne was requoting you here. Silence is strategic and quiet is powerful, which I think sounds like something maybe is, as you were saying, not just to beat the desk or be the loudest in the room. Um, when thinking the difference between the extrovert, the lots of fanfare, all of the maybe the raised voice, maybe the biggest personality in the room versus the introvert that's kind of stoic, maybe reserved, from a perspective in the room. Do you feel like that's a misnomer? Are you saying that we should stop thinking that the person that walks in is like, "Hey, everybody, how you doing?" Blah 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 blah, is the leader of the room?
I think that often is the perception, and something that we need to shift, because I I mean, this country, corporate America, is very extrovert centric. There are so many policies in the workplace that really favor extroverts. I mean, let's just think of open office plans. Like, no introvert can get their work done with so many distractions. But really, now there's a ton of research that shows that's not an effective work environment for anybody because of the number of distractions. And so I do think it's really important to remember that the loudest person doesn't have the best ideas, and that introverts are quietly solving problems while you're talking, and you would never hear about them and benefit from those creative solutions unless you actually make space on purpose to hear from them.
Wow. Let me ask you this. How do we do that? How do we make space? How do we bring it to a level field of saying, we want to know your ideas? How do we do that?
Yeah, well, it takes being really intentional about it. And if you're in a position of leadership, I would encourage you, instead of telling people they're too quiet and criticizing the people for, something that's just like a personality trait, to instead look at how you can change the structures. So a few simple things in meetings that can make them so much more inclusive, and not just for introverts, but for anyone who might not who speak a different language as their first language, like who might have another, like a hearing impairment. Like, all of these things can make meetings more inclusive. And so one is to really establish guidelines and rules of engagement. And so one that I really love and I share with all of my clients is something called 1, 2, 3, and me. So after you speak, you wait for 3 more people to contribute before you jump in again. And so it builds self-awareness, and it also creates a space for people to monitor themselves, but also to help their more talkative teammates to monitor them and give people permission to remind them, oh, wait, it's not your turn yet. We want to hear from more people. And, another quick tip is to ask people to write ideas down. So if you throw out a question in a business meeting, what normally happens, it's the Wild West, right? Like people just jump in, and it does. The platform, the microphone normally goes to the loudest person, the first to jump in. And so a way to shift that is to give people 2 minutes, just 2 minutes, to write down their ideas. And giving people thinking time will not only change how many people you hear from, but it can also really improve the quality of ideas, because taking those couple minutes can allow people to think through whether or not, that's the best strategy.
That's amazing. Is that something that they should just write on the board so people walk in prepared with 3, 2, 1, and to take 2 minutes to write it down? Because it sounds like this is the way every meeting should be held.
I agree. Every meeting should be held that way. Yeah, I think that's should be part of the discussion as a team, and something that you can put forward as a leader. And it's something that you want to propose and get your team's buy-in.
How do you get the extroverts to come down and introverts come up a little bit? How do you balance that in general communication when they step out of that room to have conversations, say about that meeting, or as coworkers to find a better ground to
Mm-hmm.
come together?
Yeah. Well, so I really appreciate how you mentioned both, because I think the onus so often falls on introverts. People are told you're too quiet, you should speak up more. And really, we need both. In order for introverts to speak up more, we often need other people to step back. And so one of the things that I teach my clients and leaders who are on the more extroverted side and who are working on being more inclusive and better facilitators in meetings is how to listen with all of their senses. So we mistakenly think that listening is just something that we do with our ears, but to really garner the most meaning, we need to make it an activity that includes all of the senses. So what do we see happening? What do we feel happening? Right?
Mm.
And those are, when we pay attention to all of those nonverbal cues, that can increase our self-awareness and help us tune into what's happening in our body in that moment, and to be more present. And being more present is what gives us presence.
Cool. Lots of good quotes going on, right, Anne? Anne's out there. She's our friend Anne is heavy in the chat, and I think that we've
Oh, I
got some
love
great
that.
quotes from you, Madeline. Um, I, I think that's fantastic. Is there a good way to, let's say we've been going down that path and it's been not so good at work and we're a little rough, and now we've heard from you today and we go, wow, there's a better way. We can come to middle ground. What do you say? What's that approach? Who comes to who? And it doesn't matter who's first, but how do we make first steps after we realize we've made some bad steps?
Yeah. Well, communication is a skill. That's something that I always like to emphasize, because earlier in my career, I often looked at people who were really confident presenters and thought that it was because they were extroverted, or because they went to acting school, or because of X, Y, and Z. And what I didn't see was maybe they got good at it because they've practiced and they've given this sales presentation 100 times, and I haven't. And so it really is a skill. So it's like knitting and baseball, something that you can learn through practice. And the first step when I work with clients is to teach them something that I call the communication triad. And those are the three areas of focus that you want to start with. And it's the message, the mindset, and the delivery. So if you think of giving a presentation and maybe, that isn't a place where you feel super confident yet, when you get clear on your message, when you are able to deliver it in a way that's engaging, and when you change your thinking about yourself as a communicator and a leader, that's what helps propel your progress so much faster. Because otherwise, you can have all the tools and strategies and books and YouTube videos. But if you're constantly running this negative soundtrack in the back of your head, that's going to undermine your confidence every single time. So it's a big part of the work that I do, and often the most important for people to address their belief systems around communication and how they can change.
So if they are one of those people that believe that the one that comes in and the big show in the room is like the leader, if they are the ones that think that because someone's quiet means that they don't have anything to say, or
Mhm.
they're just shy, or things like that, this is where you are able to help them realign that mindset, which will help them with their communication.
Yeah, so help them realign their mindset so they can focus on the contributions of everyone and really the contributions that people who aren't like them bring to the table. And I think that's part of the work of bridging that gap between different communication styles and preferences. And then to really build their self-awareness and emotional intelligence so that they can be more purposeful in their communication.
Madeline, this makes me wonder, how does that work when you also get into age differences, generational differences? I would imagine those communication styles they are quite different for sure. There is a lot of, I guess, pre thought about, introvert, extrovert in that sense. So, does that come into play, having to also teach communication across generations?
Yeah. I mean, I think it's relevant across all kinds of differences, generations, gender, race, uh, e- ethnicity, class, right? And this is where really developing our emotional intelligence and improving our ability to process emotions and to be comfortable with other people's emotions and still communicate through that is important to bridge those differences. And it can also come up with like personality type and job function. So for instance, like my background is in creative fields. I was first a designer for a long time, and then I switched over to being an account and project manager. And that is an area where I see so many communication breakdowns, that there's just this misunderstanding between creative teams and business teams. And because I have worked on both sides of that, I can really have this deep empathy for the pressure that each of those people are under and can help them figure out how to talk to each other and to focus, I think, in all of those situations. Like, if we're going back to your question about generational differences, to focus on what we have in common, to look for where we can agree instead of where we disagree. And that comes back to listening, right? If we can train ourselves to focus on the places where we do align, then that can change our entire attitude around communication and around colleagues.
This is powerful. We had this. We did not go this deep in conversation when we met the first time, but it just. I'm still going. I want to be silent because I loved hearing everything that you have to say about this. It seems to me that this type of communication, stepping back, doing these methods, coming to a more emotional intelligence about communication itself, is what you said at the beginning, life changing. That taking not just taking communication for granted, but realizing it is a skill. You have to develop practice. Um, it comes back to what you started with, to bring this to people's awareness and to offer that to impact their lives. I would imagine this has to affect people even with their families, right? To even communicate with their families.
Yes. Well, communication is the one skill that it touches every area of life. We need to do it at work. We need to do it at home. We need to do it in our communities. And so working on your communication skills in one area improves your communication skills in every other area. And so often, most of my clients come to me because they want to work on their communication at work. But what they tell me at the end is that it improves their confidence in every area of life. Like, it makes them more comfortable in social situations, in their personal relationships. It just changes how they show up and their ability to express their needs, to lobby for change, and again, to lead themselves and the people around them.
Does that mean that you also do some relationship coaching? Because it sounds like that plays into it, huh?
That definitely comes up for people, and sometimes it's the relationships that they have with their colleagues or their managers, and sometimes it's the relationships that they have with their kids. But again, how we communicate in one place affects how we communicate in other areas. And relationships are, communication is the basis of every relationship that we have, whether it's at work or at home.
So, do most people come after they've had a problem, or are they seeking to improve before they have a problem with communication?
Yeah. It's mostly people who have identified communication as an area that they want to grow, or that they have a presentation coming up. And this really is a problem in their life. Like, if they have a presentation coming up and they're losing sleep over it for weeks and they're terrified, and they want to be able to showcase their work, that would be a place that they come to me. So I had a client who was speaking on a panel in front of 200 people, and she called me and she said, "I'm on this panel in 2 weeks. I have to talk in front of 200 clients with 4 partners. Can you help me?"
Wow.
And yeah, and so we worked on preparing her panel presentation, and we worked on a number of skills to help her just calm her anxiety around having to get up and talk in front of that many people. And, she got incredible feedback on that presentation, but it really wasn't until we worked together on the next presentation, when she was doing a new business pitch, that things really completely shifted for her and how she saw herself as a communicator. And she led this pitch team that brought in a huge piece of business for the company. And after that, the second thing that we worked on together, she spoke at the company meeting, that year on stage. And she was just like, yeah, it was no longer a problem. Like, I was still nervous, but I had all of these tools to work through the nerves. And, she said it completely changed her career.
What a testimony to impact. Just fantastic. You know, the ability to change that much, to get up in front of people. What's our biggest fear in life? What is the number one fear that people always put down? Right, is almost always speaking in public. Right, if I had to speak in public, so to conquer that with training and guidance, and then to improve to the point of growing and having more opportunities and continuing to do it. I can't imagine how fulfilling is that for you, Madeline, especially from your beginning story of where this kind of the crux came of starting this process and this wonderful opportunity that you now share to everyone.
Yeah. I mean, what I love about what I do now is that I get to help other people share their story and really see that the impact of giving a presentation that you never thought was possible goes far beyond that one presentation, because it just shifts how you see yourself, how you show up as a leader, and therefore how other people see you. So it allows you to express yourself and to really have the capacity and the ability to make change. And we need more quiet leaders who are able to make those changes and listen to each other.
All off the charts, good information. Ann Ryan here is going crazy quoting you all in the chat. Fantastic. She says she's having a blast just quoting you today because of all this great information. I think takeaways are: you have the ability to see, you have the ability to be seen, whether you're an extrovert or introvert. Come to the table equally, with some amazing tools that you can get from Madeline to be able to be heard in a different way, to learn how to express yourself well, and to change your trajectory, really, if you decide that you want to focus on communication and understand that it's not just something we're given. It is a skill that you can practice at, get better at, and improve and change your life completely. So many times I hear this about a lot of nonprofits, with people that are in poverty or have other struggles. And it's always about being seen. And that just struck me today with what you're saying is allowing people to be seen, remembering that the quietest person in the room could actually be the smartest person in the room. And we need to give them space as an extrovert, give them space to share their ideas and their impact, because what a loss if we don't do that. And what a gain we've gotten from you, that to break through all of those barriers and use your strength, your introvert strength, to teach others, both introvert and extrovert, how to lock that in and improve their life. You are just such a gift. I am so thrilled to have you today. Um, let's just check and see if we've got any more questions, because I don't want to let you go. But I want to thank Ann Ryan. She brought us together and introduced us, and she's fantastic. But man, just thrilled about that. Jeannie Lehman joined us, and Shauna Reinhardt, good friend of mine. And I see, having a hard time seeing the chat, but we just want to thank everybody that's watching. Again, we'll share this after it's finished recording. Final thoughts. Well, one is, I've got a question for you. So two things. Okay, I've got two questions. One is your final thoughts, but the other is, what do you got coming up? Like, what can we look forward to? Is there something you'd like to share that you got coming up?
Yes. So I am, oh, excuse me. I am doing a workshop on May 25th on how to communicate with confidence in any room. So for anyone who's watching this and is feeling a little bit nervous about that presentation that you have coming up, or the difficult conversation that you need to have with a colleague, this would be the place to join me and walk away with an easy framework to start building your skills and change how you communicate.
Awesome. Yes. You got to put the all that information in the chat when we get done. We'll add that into the chat at the end. That sounds fantastic. Tell us, give us a final word to start off our day and be a little bit more wide-eyed and and listening on either side of the table. Introvert or extrovert? Give us a word.
Yes. Well, as an introvert, and for all of the introverts who are watching, I just want to remind you that the world needs your ideas.
Perfect. Perfect. All right. I want to thank you so much, Madeline. I hope to have you again. I appreciate your insight and everything that you do to change this world. Thank you for your time this morning. And
Thank you
y'all,
for having
we're going
me.
to put the connection. Make sure you connect with her. Find out about the workshop. Get in touch with Madeline. We'll have her um, what am I contact information in the chat for you. Have a wonderful day. Thanks for joining us, y'all. Bye bye.